in this part, we are going to learn about functions in PHP. What are they and why we need them? Imagine you are doing the same task over and over again, like this person packing bottles one by one. It's time consuming and repetitive. Instead of doing the same task multiple times, we can create a function to handle it for us. Functions are like machines, they receive an input, process it, then return an output. You can also chain multiple functions together to complete a full process, just like a factory production line where each function performs a specific task to complete a bigger logic. Now let's see how we can create a function in PHP. First, we type the keyword function followed by the name of the function. Then we add parentheses and inside them we can pass our parameters if needed. After that, we use the curly brackets, and inside the curly brackets we write the logic that we want the function to perform. Okay, so now that we know what is a function and why we use that function, let's create our first function. To create a function, we will type the function keyword. Then after that, the name of the function. So we will type greeting, the name of the function, then our parentheses, and after that, the curly brackets. And inside this curly bracket, we will type our logic. So for example, echo hello e Raufi. Now in the browser, I will not see anything. And the reason is because I have not called this function. To execute a function, we have to call that function. So in here, if I type the function name with the parentheses in the browser, I will get hello e Raufi. So this is the basic of function, that how we can create and how we can call it. Another thing is that you can also pass parameters to a function, or a value to a function, or an input to a function. So for example, if I want to change this name dynamically, and every time I call this function, I pass them a new name, we can do that as well. So instead of hero field, let's create a parameter and write it here. So first, to create a parameter, the same way we create a variable, you will start with $sign and the parameter name. Then inside the function, you can access it just by typing it as it is. So name will be name. Let's add our br also in here. Break. Now, when I call this function, I have to pass the name. If I don't, I'm getting an error. So let's pass the name in here. So Raufi. Now I got hello Raufi. And every time I call this function, I can change the name as well. So that this one will be John and this one is Ali. Now I got hello Raufi first time, then John, and after that Ali. You can pass as many parameters as you want. So I can pass the last name as well. So if I type here last name, in my all functions, I also have to pass the second parameter also. So in here, let's pass the last name in the first function. I got hello one, but for the second and third time that we call it, I don't want to pass. So I want to, the last name should be optional. So you can do it by just setting a default value to this. So I will say the default value of last name should be null. Now I will not get anything. And in here, if I pass the last name as well, call the last name. So I got, let's add the br. Okay. So now as you guys can see in my first function, I got hello Irofi and my last name. But for the second and third function, I got just the name. But if I want, I can pass the last name. For example, here I can pass the last name and I will get it. But it's right now it's optional. I don't have to pass it every time. So let's fix this. Most of the time that we create a function, we expect the function to return a value, not just equal. Right now in here, for example, I just wrote an equal, but in actual world, we want to return a value from a function. So for example, let's create a new function in here. Let's call it function and let's call it add to add two values. So first we will pass the first variable and it need and the second parameter. Then inside the logic of the function, we will say return a plus dollar sign b. Now let's store the result of this function inside a variable. We can do that also. Let's create a new variable and set it to add function dollar sign a plus dollar sign, sorry, pass the values 10 plus 20. Now if I echo this result, I should get the sum of 10 plus 20. So echo dollar sign result. Now in the browser, I got 30. So most of the time that when we create a function, we will return a value from it, or we expect a value from it. Same like this example. As we said in our example, we can change as we said in our example, we can chain multiple functions together also, or we can call one function inside another function as well. What mean by that? So let's create one more function and this time let's call this multiply and pass our parameters, then return x multiplied by y. So right now I have this two functions. Let's create another function, one more function with the name of calculate total. So function calculate total, and this function in this we will pass, let's pass three parameters. So let's say dollar sign a, dollar sign b, and dollar sign c. So what we want to do first, we want to add these two, then multiply it, and finally return the value. So first we will say sum is equal to add, and we will pass a and b value. Then let's multiply it by the third parameter. So let's create a new variable and call multiply function. So let's type here multiply, pass our sum in the first parameter, then in that second parameter call our third parameter dollar sign c, and finally let's return the multiply. So now if I call this function first, this function will call this add, then this it will call this function, and finally it will return as the result. So let's comment this out, and in here let's call our result calculate total, and for the first parameter I will pass 10, for the second parameter I will pass 20, and for the third parameter I will pass 2. Now if I echo, I will get 60. So the reason is because 10 plus 20, which will happen in here, it will become 30. Then and multiplied, this x is 30, so and y is 2. So we will get 30 times 2, and we'll get the 60. So this is the basics of function.